Ladies and gentlemen, another day of South African politics. And today's politics will, pretty retarded. So let's actually go through the headlines. But before I do, can I yet again remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you'd really like to support the work that I do here, you're welcome to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description box below. And I really need a coffee. Sometimes reading these headlines is just exhausting. So let's go on to the first one, and this is that the DA lays criminal charges against the Human Settlements Minister. Now, you'd be forgiven for knowing who the Human Settlements Minister was, because, well, she's not one of those main headline grabbers. Oh, wait, I lie, she is. She's been in the headlines before as the Justice Minister, and if you recall, she was accused at that point in time of bribery and corruption and looting some money from VBS. Well, it turns out that apparently there's been another case pushed against her for some money she allegedly stole from Eskom. And apparently there's been a report on this, and it's sat on Cyril's desk, and he has deliberated it and considered the report. And lo and behold, like the Lady R report that never saw the light of day, Cyril's not releasing the report. This, as a result, this individual who has now been accused of fraud twice. Let us not forget, she was accused of fraud, and she was reshuffled from her position from Justice Minister to Human Settlements Minister, and now she's been accused of a second load of fraud. And I've got to say, at this point in time, where there's smoke, there's fire. So when I asked the question, what's Cyril doing about it? And the answer is, well, nothing, which is why the DA MP, Glenys Breitenbach, has filed a criminal charge against her on the basis that the president's never going to do anything. So she's laid the criminal charge and asked us to investigate. Now, you'll be forgiven for failing to understand why this individual is being protected. And that is because there is a rumor. This rumor was first put out into the public environment by, well, Rob Hersoff, to be frank. Rob made the suggestion that apparently she was one of the front runners to take over from Cyril when Cyril leaves office. Apparently Cyril wants the next president of the ANC to be a female. And this may be one of the people being nominated. The other person is obviously the presidency spokesperson, who's a female as well. Also with, would you know, corruption charges. I mean, is there anybody in the ANC that you couldn't issue corruption charges against? Let me know in the comment section below. So let's get on to the next news story. And this is actually around the VAT hike. Now, for those of you who voted Action SA, you're an idiot. But Action SA, obviously, were told that the reason they would vote for the budget is that Godongwana would reconsider the VAT increase. And he would do that in 30 days. Well, Godongwana has done what everybody does in these situations, and he has considered the VAT increase. And he's determined that having considered it, he will still be adopting it because he has no alternatives in order to raise the relevant taxes that he needs, but to do the VAT increase. And every person with a brain cell, 2 eyes and 2 ears can turn around to him and Mcebisi and say, we told you so. Right? You guys voted for a clownish promise from a clownish party, expecting them to somehow honor it. Like, have you guys not been around for 30 years? Like, be reasonable. And clearly they weren't. Because unfortunately, what you tended to find from Herman Mcebisi is that his hatred for the DA overrode any form of common sense. And still now, they ask him, well, Herman, why did you do this? And he goes, well, the DA. You could say to him, Herman, why did you run over your dog? And he'll say, well, the DA. And you could say, Herman, why did you paint your house red? And you'll go, the DA. Because everything in his head is the freaking DA. But the reality is, he got sold a pipe dream that was never going to happen. And as a result, the VAT increase is still going to happen. So now, accordingly, the DA has until the 22nd of April to determine whether their court challenge to the fiscal framework, which was adopted, was going to go ahead. And effectively, if it does go ahead and they challenge the budget directly, then the question is, are they leaving the GNU or are they not? Yeah, it's that chestnut all over again, because every day in South African politics sometimes feels like Groundhog Day. Talking of what doesn't feel like Groundhog Day, and this is actually the recent IRR polling, and this is specifically around the ANC, given the VAT increase. Because according to the latest polling, the ANC is now polling at lower than the DA. The DA is polling above 30%, with the ANC actually polling below it, and the reason cited is because no one wants a VAT increase, specifically the poor. Now, the grand irony is that this is a budget that's being promoted as a pro-poor budget. That's the whole reason the ANC and Action SA says they're pushing it forward in the first place, right? Because the DA doesn't want a VAT increase because they're anti-poor. Well, the poor have spoken and they said, we don't want to pay an extra 0.5% on VAT because it will increase the costs of our goods, which we buy in our stores. So yes, this has directly impacted the ANC, and yet again, the ANC has committed an own goal. Let us not forget, the last own goal that they effectively scored was by signing the NHI in, because NHI was specifically the one piece of legislation which it was thought had cost the ANC up to nearly 5 to 7% of the vote, depending on who you poll. Now, the reality is, had the ANC actually got that, they would have been close to their 50% majority and probably wouldn't have needed a GNU. They could have probably just done a coalition with the IFP or the PA. But the reality is they screwed themselves. And they're screwing themselves again. And for those of you that really dislike the ANC, you'll be saying, good, just keep doing it. But unfortunately, there are knock-on consequences of that will be felt by the people that aren't retarded. Although I have no doubt there will be a number of you in the comment section that will be saying, they voted for this, therefore they are retarded and they deserve it. That's a bit harsh. That's not really how politics in South Africa works, but I get your point. What I don't actually get the point from is actually our new special envoy to the US, Jonas. Because Jonas says that following the controversy that came up around his 2020 speech where he described Donald Trump as being a racist and a homophobe, he understands that he may not be the best special envoy to send to the US. But he's going anyway, because this is usually how it works. Now, the reason he says that is he says, well, he doesn't believe that Trump holds grudges. And for that, I would say, dude, have you been watching what Trump's been doing? He's had like 4 years to plan grudges, and like he's getting on with it pretty quick. But in any case, apparently, according to this cader, he doesn't hold grudges. And so he thinks that Trump will give him the time of day and allow him to go in there and remedy the broken relationship between South Africa and the US. Now, a number of you will be sitting there listening to that and thinking, Jesus, that's retarded. But let's actually look at the rationality that he gives. And he says, if you Google any politician in South Africa or even abroad, is there anyone that basically has never said anything nasty about other politicians? And he cites how key individuals in the current Trump administration had previously said negative things about Donald Trump. Specifically, Marco Rubio, who once described Trump as a con artist, or the current ambassador, Mr. Leo, who once described Trump as being a shameless self-promoter hawkster and selling only himself. And he says these individuals are now all key Trump allies, and so he feels that at the end of the day, Trump won't hold a bad bone against this individual. He'll give him the time of day and he'll allow him to do his job. So why is he going? Well, he says that when he made those comments in 2022, he didn't make them on behalf of the government. He made them as an activist. And to that, I would say, so basically you made them to the Muhammad whatever memorial lecture. We can assume that it was probably an Islamic memorial lecture. And during there, you pandered to your audience. And you basically said something that you thought you could get them fired up with and would get them really riled up and think that you were great. And now you don't have the conviction to stand by what you said because you said it as an activist, as you self-describe, and your rationality for saying that was basically you were talking to what? And we know what he was doing. He was pandering to an audience. He was saying things he doesn't believe. And now that he's been called out on it, he said it as an activist and it wasn't on behalf of government. And when he goes to the US, apparently he's going there as an envoy or as a representative of government. And his sole job is going to be to basically promote South Africa and encourage investment in the country. And so to that, he says he intends to crack. Yep, that's what he says. He intends to crack the whole Trump administration and figure out how he gets in there and remedies the whole situation. And inshallah, everything's fantastic. Except I don't see how this is going to pan out in the way that the individual says. Not everything in the US is a BEE grift where you basically get to the top of MTN on the basis of who you know, not what you know. And it may very well be the case that in this instance, when he goes to the US, he knows no one, and so ultimately he falls on his face. And I must admit, I'm really expecting that to be the case. And so this still begs the question, who exactly is going to get nominated as our ambassador to the US? And the answer is, we still don't know. But so far, this is the best we're getting in terms of a special envoy. Yep. Groundhog Day in South Africa. And I guess politicians are like this. Anybody who gets nominated by the ANC at this point in time is just like spent. And this, unfortunately, is where the ANC finds itself. It's a spent force in 2025. They've run through all the cadres. All the cadres are up for some form of corruption somewhere. And all of them have said stupid shit when they tried to pander to an audience at some point in time that they now regret saying. This is just the state of politics in South Africa. And with that being said, these are just my views. Please do let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until tomorrow, bye.